What's up, you guys? It's Girl Taylor. Welcome back to another video. So this video is going to be all about my experiences in activity section of my medical school application. Okay, so I'm going to take an approach to this video a little bit differently. I first want to share a couple tips I have of kind of how to go about thinking about what to write in this section, and then show you the actual examples I used and kind of how I incorporated those tips into my examples. So I really only have one major tip, but that major tip is kind of broken down in a couple ways. So the biggest thing that I would think about when writing your activity section is impact. So that can either be the impact you had on an activity or the impact an activity had on you. And you can show this in a couple ways, kind of based on what the activity is. So one way to show it is more quantitative, so through numbers. So example, raising X amount of money, teaching X amount of students, running X amount of meetings, really showing kind of how much impact you had based on the number of things that you did. And then the other way to show impact is through a very specific story you had, either kind of doing something in the club, interacting with a specific person, and showing, the impact that person had on you or you were able to have on that person. So now I want to go to examples of my activities. I'm not going to go through all of them. So if you want to check out the video up above, that is the overview of my whole application where I actually show pretty much my entire application. So you can kind of pause throughout there to see all of my activity descriptions if you need some ideas. Yeah, I just want to go through kind of how I thought about impact in a couple of different types of activities that you might have in your application. So for this first one, this is a research activity. This is actually a personal project I was doing. And this was my first time ever conducting like a personal research project. So I was very much coming up with, okay, what question do I want to ask? How do I go about doing a literature search to see what's already out there? How do I propose this idea to my PI and see if it's something that's actually doable? And then, of course, analyzing data itself. For this one, I kind of showed impact in two ways. The first way I wanted to show was the impact that this activity had on me. So how this was very much a learning opportunity for me to kind of get my hands dirty and learn the scientific process on my own. And then I also wanted to show kind of my impact in how I hope that this research could be used broadly to understand suicidality in psychosis and help hopefully, prevent suicidality in psychosis based on this research. Okay, this next activity is a clinical experience. This was also research that I did, but I highlighted more of the kind of clinical aspect than the research aspect of it. So I really wanted to show impact through numbers for this one. So I said, I conducted over 80 interviews, MRIs, and cognitive assessment batteries. So that way the reader knows, okay, she sat with 80 different patients and did all of these things on them. I saw a wide variety of illnesses from substance abuse to depression to schizophrenia. So again, showing, I didn't just work with one type of psychiatric illness. I really worked with all types of psychiatric disorders in this job. And then the fact that I'd spent a minimum of 3 hours interviewing each patient so they can see kind of the time that I spent with patients. And then for the most meaningful part of this, I really wanted to show the impact that patients had on me in this role. So I ended up highlighting a very specific patient who I named Kaya. She had a history of sexual assault. She was hospitalized for a suicide attempt. And she was someone who I very much saw how psychiatric illness can progress through someone's life. So, for example, she had PTSD from childhood trauma that led to feelings of depression, and that led to an opiate use disorder that she was trying to kind of cope with that depression. And then something that really struck me about Kaya in our interview was really her resilience in the fact that, she had been in and out of rehab for a decade trying to get clean. And she had several suicide attempts and, she was struggling, and there would be times when she was doing really well and times when there would be setbacks and she'd be back in the hospital. So for this, I just kind of wanted to highlight, the fact that I know that medicine is not a linear thing and that I'm really excited to see that resiliency in my patients as a provider. Okay, this next one is a teaching experience. So for this one, again, I tried to show impact through numbers by saying I taught 18 students in this lab section. And then I tried to show a little bit of like kind of my problem solving skills and my impact on this specific student that I had named Tia, and just kind of using the obstacles of Zoom and being in a virtual lab to really tailor like a one-on-one experience for her and using like private messaging because she was obviously struggling with material when her classmates weren't. Okay, I'll go over a leadership one next. So this was in my peer mental health counseling group. So for this, I oversaw 24 trainers and 140 students in our counseling program, kind of again showing the impact of, this is the amount of people I ultimately had to lead and I was responsible for. And for this one, I wrote about one of my trainers who I named Tim, and he was very nervous when it came to him leading his skills presentation to our students. And so I talked about kind of the impact I had on him, where, I took time to work on him one by one. I was very much someone who, like, he could ask me any questions. I helped him practice his presentation. I gave him, talking points, ways he could engage with our audience. And ultimately, he successfully delivered his presentation to 80 students. So kind of showing the impact I had on Tim that then had an impact on the 80 students he presented to. Okay, next I want to talk about this community service that's not medical at all. So for this one, I actually helped run concerts at Cornell, which was really fun. So I helped plan and run 5 different concerts in which thousands of Cornell students attended. And for this one, music is something that's so important to me. So I really wanted to highlight that and just kind of the impact music can have on someone as a whole. So I talked about how, looking out into a crowd, normally my classmates are very stressed. We're in a high achieving environment, a very high stress environment at Cornell. But, being able to provide a space where they didn't feel that stress and they just got to, relax, enjoy themselves, dance, smile, sing. That's kind of how I tried to show impact in this particular example. Okay, and then I'll just go over one last type of example. So this is actually a hobby. So I've been a seamstress for a really long time. And for this, I kind of first started with the impact that sewing had on me. So I learned how to sew from my grandmother. So that was just a great, bonding experience for us in general. How kind of it was very exciting and really spectacular just to see, a regular yard of fabric transformed into something I can now wear and show the world. And just kind of, highlighting that, over time, I was able to grow as a seamstress. I learned new techniques. My garments got more complex. And I, started sharing this hobby with other people. So I started having kind of an impact on others by, I would provide alterations for my friends in their clothes. I made face masks during the pandemic. And I also taught a lot of students kind of how to sew their own clothes. Okay, so that's all I have for this video. I hope this was helpful in giving you an idea of what to write about in your experiences and what kind of things to think about. So how I would get started with this section is really just brainstorming certain instances in an activity that had a lot of impact on you or you were able to impact someone else. If you have any questions about how to go about writing activities or why I included certain things in mine, feel free to leave those in the comments. And if you haven't already, feel free to check out my video all about my personal statement. Yeah, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to join me on my medical journey. And other than that, I'll see you later. Peace.